I'll start a speech drop yet.
Not yet, I know.
Yeah, I've been able to. I'll just write the code before.
Then before we start, I just have a few questions for the judges if that's cool. Quinn specifically, how do you feel about disclosure theory?
How do I feel about it?
Yeah.
Just like generally?
Like, are you willing to vote on it?
Sure.
Okay.
I'd be willing to.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Would I actively desire to? No.
That's fair.
But
Yeah.
yes, if that's what you're going for. I'm not going to tell you not to.
Okay. Thank you. Just wondering. And then does anyone have like on topicality, do you need proven abuse or is potential abuse okay? Just like anyone.
I don't care.
Okay.
I'm unlikely to vote on potential abuse.
Okay.
I won't say I won't, but I'm unlikely to.
That's cool. And then is everyone good with like slow on tabs, like faster on text? Okay. Then I'm good whenever you
Cool.
are.
Does everyone work this speech drop?
Yeah.
It's capital K, capital W, lowercase o, 9, capital Y, capital X.
Oh, sorry, one more question. Is everyone okay with critical arguments? Okay, awesome.
AJ, can you reread the speech drop then?
Yeah, it's capital K, capital W, lowercase o, 9, capital Y, capital X.
Capital Y, capital X.
X, yeah.
Sorry, please.
Yeah. Capital K, capital W, lowercase o, number 9, capital Y, capital X.
Access the ballots at all.
I can access the ballot, but it won't let me choose someone to win.
It won't let them.
I'll write it.
Will be a problem come 50 minutes.
Yeah, so it's not really from me.
But I'd like to get this result before, so I can move it early.
She said just start the round, she'll figure it out.
I assume that'd be the case.
That's an O, not a 0. we still waiting for the ballots or whatever?
It doesn't matter, we
No,
start.
it's not.
Okay. Should be. Everyone good?
Wait, sorry, let me go back.
Good?
Mm-hmm.
Observation 1's inherency. A, the power grid should be vulnerable to 18. Electric utilities are under constant attack from both independent and state-affiliated hackers who will infiltrate the power control system in the U.S. and even disrupt the delivery of electricity in places like Ukraine. Infiltrators exploit the relationship between utilities and their private vendors that supply critical software and communication technologies to run the grid. Plan text. The United States federal government should mandate U.S. Cyber Command to oversee the installation and monitoring of the aviation intrusion detection system for all U.S.-owned electricity grids, funding and enforcement through normal means. Observation 2 is solvency. A, Bayesian intrusion systems have a high probability of success with D equals 7. Based on the Bayesian classification, methods are proposed showing a very high detection rate with a reasonable true positive rate as well, much better than the classic method. By training with the Bayesian classification procedure, log analyzer performs well in discovering the inherent nature of the data set, filtering similar instances in the same class. The new model update is accomplished by model parameter re-estimation. The system presents real-time feasibility with no special hardware requirement. Moreover, it's being extended to detect security violations in heterogeneous network environments. B, Bayesian intrusion detection is key to identifying attackers. Burrows 02. It is not the attacker, rather the attacker against which networks must be defended. Through understanding the behavior of the attacker, it is possible to have a clearer picture of what is occurring. The information being provided by the intrusion detection system must be gathered and then divided into its component parts, such that the activity of individual attackers may be clear. By treating intrusion detection systems as a sensor web and applying mature concepts from the sensor fusion techniques and target tracking algorithms, we aim to generate a higher level of situational awareness. This can then aid in the process of defending against attackers, providing insight into their motives and methods. C. Intrusion detection allows for constant security updates, ensuring the system won't become outdated. Scott 03. Bayesian methods mitigate complexity by allowing modelers to break complicated user and intruder models into manageable pieces. Network complexity can be handled using a hierarchical model whose conditional independent structure allows designers to concentrate on individual model components. Modeling efforts for individual transactions to be focused on variables that will be effective discriminators between user and intruder behavior. Bayesian methods allow evidence of intrusion to be presented at a familiar scale by first calculating intrusion probabilities. A system designed according to these principles will be as good as the models on which it is based. Bayesian will ensure the system is coherent. Coherency eliminates logistical inconsistencies and makes the system easier to explain to new investigators. Polarity makes the system easy to maintain and document so it can be improved for better models of user and intruder behavior as they become available. Advantage 1 is protecting emergency infrastructure. A. Nations are shifting from probing U.S. grid to preparing for an attack. LIFO 18. Even before the realization on July 23rd that Russian government hackers had penetrated the computer system of U.S. electric utilities and could have caused blackouts, government agencies and electricity industry leaders are working to protect U.S. customers and society as a whole. These developments, alarming as they might seem, are not new. Various adversaries, including Russia, but also China, North Korea, and Iran, have been testing and adapting the U.S. industrial system for years. B. Bayesian prevents attacks on the power grid. Garcia 12. It is possible to conclude that using the Bayesian network concepts allows to confirm an excellent basis for paradigm unifying network intrusion detection, providing not only stable misuse detection, but also effective anomaly detection capabilities. The Bayesian approach also enables the implement of powerful feature overage. Contrary to other approaches such as neural networks, the Bayesian network allows administrative managing of inner information structures. It is not only possible to recover reasoning information, but also to act on both Bayesian network structures and conditional probability parameters. C. Without improvement, states can shut down the power grid. Mac 18. Ukraine, often a testing ground for Russian cyber offensive, has twice blamed Russia for attacks on its electrical grid. Hackers associated with the Kremlin developed malware that knocked out 1/5 of the power generated in the Ukrainian capital. Dragos found that the hackers who modify the malware and attack systems in the U.S. and other countries. Everything that happened in this report from the FBI and DHS happened in Ukraine minus the disruption. What someone does to Ukraine is going to be very similar to what someone does to the United States. D. When hospitals lack power, people die. Johnson 16. Without computer systems, pharmacists can't easily review patients' lab results, look at what location patients are on. In MedScar's case, a virus infiltrated the computer systems, forcing the healthcare giant to shut down its entire network, turn away patients, postpone surgeries, and resort to paper records. These attacks can do a lot more to get your data. They can really disrupt the day-to-day operations of your facilities. MedScar's security breach shows hackers increasing boldness and sophistication. Advantage 2 is the economy. First, the economy is going to be facing challenges soon. Focus Economics 18. The economy has been recovering slowly yet unevenly since the depths of the recession in 2009. There is still widespread debate regarding the health of the U.S. economy. Even though the worst effects of the recession are now fading, the economy still faces a variety of significant challenges going forward. B. The Bayesian framework is the most optimal way to protect against the U.S. economy and evolve for future protection. Lawson and Goldstein 16. Uncertainty in inputs is represented as a probability distribution in the Bayesian framework. Because of the substantial computational expenses of evaluations, it is only possible to evaluate the decision support model a limited number of times. Key to the approach presented is to therefore use a statistical emulator to quantify this uncertainty at points where the model has not been evaluated. This provides a systematic means of considering the entire decision space, even with relatively few models of evaluations, and the decision space can be effectively narrowed down by successfully rejecting decisions which are very unlikely to be optimal based on evidence from the current emulator, and constructing an improved emulator through additional model evaluations of regions of decision space that remains of interest. C. An attack on the U.S. power grid would be catastrophic. Page 18. Research shows the financial impacts of even a small power cut can be catastrophic. Analysts from blackout events in the U.S. show a 30-minute power cut result in an average loss of $15,000 for medium and large-scale industrial clients, and nearly $94,000 for an 8-hour interruption. Even short blackouts add up to an annual estimated economic loss between $104 and $164 billion. Onto the impact. Poverty outweighs an ongoing thermonuclear war. Gilligan 2000. The 18 million deaths a year caused by structural violence compared to 100,000 from armed conflict. Comparing this frequency of deaths from structural violence to those caused by major military and political violence such as World War II, it was clear that even war cannot begin to compare with structural violence, which continues year after year, even 15 years, as many people die of relative poverty as would be killed in a nuclear war that caused 213 million deaths. Every single year, 2 to 3 times as many people die from poverty throughout the world that were killed by the Nazi genocide. This is the equivalent of an ongoing, unending, in fact accelerating thermonuclear war or genocide perpetuated on the poor. Ready for cross.
Okay. So let's start with solvency. What specific piece of evidence do you read that says that cyber command is key?
That's not read insolvency. It's assumed through the case that since Cyber Command handles most cybersecurity in the United States, that they'd be the best
Wait,
actors.
cyber command handles most cybersecurity in the United
They're the best
States.
fit. Well, for the specific plan of taking care of the power grids, they'd be the best actors.
Okay, that's fine. Let's go into your first advantage. What evidence do you read that hospitals are connected to the power grid?
The Johnson 16 evidence illustrates that when a virus attacked the hospital, it can shut down day-to-day operations.
How does this provide an internal link from the power grid to hospitals? You
Well,
just said viruses can hurt hospitals. Where do you talk about the power grid?
Well, in order for the hospital to have day-to-day operations, they're connected to power grids. There may be parts of a hospital that are independent from power grids that rely
Okay.
on different forms of
So-
electricity, but
So your MAC evidence is talking specifically about the military electric grid. Where does your Johnson evidence articulate that there is a connection to the military electrical grid?
no, the MAC 18 evidence does a great job articulating that an attack that happened in Ukraine is going to be very similar to what happens when
On
Russia
US
would attack
hospitals.
U.S. power grid. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure those are similar. Let's go on to the
Absolutely.
economy advantage.
Yeah.
So let's talk about specifically. You say that a recession will happen soon. So who does economic growth help most in society?
Those that already have a higher concentration of wealth.
Correct. Okay. So then let's talk about this Gilligan evidence that you read.
Yeah.
So where does it do an analysis to a nuclear war?
That's just comparing the amount of people that die from relative poverty globally than to the projected amount of people that would die in a nuclear war.
Okay, sure, that's fine. Let's go into your plan text. Okay, so you say Cyber Command should oversee the installation. Who specifically installs and monitors the Bayesian intrusion detection
Cyber
systems? Wait, but you say Cyber Command oversees it. Does that mean that other actors can have a part?
Sure, if it's mutually beneficial, but the main actor is going to be Cyber Command, and they're going to be the ones held responsible for installing and monitoring the system.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, let's talk about let's get back to your first advantage, actually.
Okay.
So you say that nations are shifting from probing the grid to preparing for an attack.
Mhm.
So that talks about specifically July 23rd. Haven't we passed that threshold?
Yes, more time has passed since July 23rd.
Okay, so why haven't we seen an attack?
Mostly because they're still in the preparation phase, right? It's going to be very difficult and very risky to conduct such a large scale attack, which is why
Yeah, it says,
nations have
this part
required
says
to map the
that there's
industrial grid
literally never been physical damage from a foreign cyber attack,
right,
correct?
because they spent all their resources mapping the industrial grid in order to know how to best attack it.
Okay.
The goal wasn't to attack the grid, the goal was to understand the grid.
I'll upload that to you right now. Oh, now Andrew understand. Your app takes me out of. Okay. Just click save. Okay, I sent it. The order will be 2 off, and then it will be the protecting emergency infrastructure advantage, econ advantage, solvency. Everyone ready? First off is topicality. Actions are distinct from rule changes. There must be feed-out realization of behavior, not simple parameters that make actions more likely. Margin also no 9. Action is governed by clear prescription, adequate resources, and ambiguous way. Distinction made between its will and behavior realization. Rules make some actions more likely, provide parameters for action where they dictate a specific action. And violation. The app has SciComm oversee the installation monitoring of Bayesian intrusion check. That's a rules change. They can even prove in cross-checks that it's specific to CyberCommand. That's key to debatable limits. There are thousands of unpredictable shifts in the CyberCommand structure that possibilize direct action, bogging negative prep burden down with researching prior questions to action and pushing debates to the margin of the topic. And bidirectionality. Allowing a rule shift makes the topic bidirectional by legitimizing affirmatives that increase rules that ramp down the material impact of SciComm. Your interpretation makes it perfectly topical to increase rules that would constrain CyberCommand's actions. And effects C, even if the app eventually leads to actions, that's effects C in an independent voting issue. Proves that the plan in a vacuum isn't topical and overlimits the topic. And vote neg to uphold a stasis of fairness in education and debate. Competing interpretations removes judge bias and ensures the most equitable model. Next up is the K. The 1AC's use of the military constructs the cyborg soldier as a masculinized, violent subject. They retrench patriarchy while creating war. Masters 10. The 21st century cyborg soldier will be outfitted with technologies to replace the sensible circumventing human biological limitations, no longer susceptible to emotion. The cyborg soldier signifies the desire to acquire total control by escaping imperfections of the human body. The distinction between simulation and reality have been breached. Isolation from the violence of war, unrestrained prosecution, violent inscription, domination. The other, gendered, racialized, and sexualized, constituted as less human as object. The characteristics traditionally described of male bodies have been re-articulated by military techno-scientific discourse and remapped onto military technologies. The distinction between the cyborg soldiers become discursively formalized along lines of masculinity and femininity needing protection. The fusion of technology with masculinity has significantly blurred this traditional distinction into software engineer who kills now. Patriarchy is more willing to dispense with human life than masculine superiority. Masculine desires to transcend the body. The cyborg is a masculinist project represents masculine desire to overcome death by making obsolete the body that must die. Ultimate masculine tendency. The cyborg colonization of less of a sheath of feminine power. And structures of masculinity construct the other as an object of desire or an object to kill. This allows unending violence. Masters 15. War with technology embodies coalescence, array of politics of violence, and intimate relationship between vision and knowledge comes to know the rest assumption is believed to know the intimate experience of women, objects, desire, making both visible and invisible surveillance of everyday life, unambiguous and masculine. The objectivizing masters looks dominance, elusive materiality, refined male could turn his target into go, unending war, permanent words, gaze, constitutes people as targets, consumerism, government, hellfire, missiles, grainy, video footage, CIA signature strikes, are regularly authorized sentences to the body to death. And the alternative is to re-engage with the body. We must destroy the cyborg soldier by reconceptualizing what it means to be a body that matters. Master 6. In this particular moment, the battery to defining bodies with matters, imagining dialogue of security and recognition of the world as it is to stabilize the intelligible, fictional identities created out of fear. The cyborg soldier infinitely leaking and retarculating alternative politics. We must begin by navigating through reality and technology is an integral part of Western ontology. Technology can be unhinged from Western discourse, but not before hegemonic articulations, power, knowledge, representing technology, or to stabilize force, radical re-articulation of what it qualifies to be a body that matters, living cognitive life, the construction of the cyborg soldier is proved to reign upon contestation and deconstruction of the unitary homogenous identity. Advanced ethics, the very technologies represents the cyborg soldier must be used against the cyborg and constitutes violence and represents the challenge is then to radically resell the subjects of ethics and responsibility, create a space for the culture with what is radically different. And let's go on to case. Start on protecting emergency infrastructure. The 1AC's protection of critical infrastructure is a product of discriminatory securitization. Their doomsday scenarios create boundary demarcations that exclude materialities. RDO 10. Material feminism, rethinking matters of security, posthumanist, performative, incorporates material and discursive factors, subject and object of both forms, and transform their interaction and materiality, transduce not given the constituted by a series of practices, different forms of knowledge are also implicated. The epidemic of infertility, the not affected the middle class white women, obliterates the infertility caused by environmental racism, the securitization of critical infrastructure, primarily about the protection of objects, living infrastructure is critical to securitizing these objects are generally held to be threats, the facility role of these interaction with forms of knowledge, truly amazing about this doomsday step, how remarkably little happens. The public work definition towards the cybersecurity infrastructure boundaries are drawn, critical infrastructure material is connected, the heart of securitization, biopolitics. Got the card of biopolitics. Okay. Let's go into the econ advantage. Oh, wait, just kidding. Sorry, one more card. Leaving the cyborg intact reinforces binary divisions of sexual identities. The cyborg exaggerates stereotypical features. Chabot 7. Reinforcement of classic binary division of sexual bodies and identities. The hypersexualist cyborg exaggerates stereotypes of features of sexualist bodies, creating their and easily identified with male and female entities without leaving a place of ambiguity. Exaggerated masculine and feminine exaggeration of homosexual identities. The cyberspace cyborg literature is created and controlled mainly by men. Cut the card of men. Now let's go to econ. War turns poverty. People are entrenched in a state of poverty when the cyborg destroys, although he views as lesser. And masculinity is the root cause of inequality. The masculine subject pushes those beneath him out of the sphere of economic growth. They concede in cross-sex. Economic growth is bad for people living at the bottom. And total economic collapse is inevitable. Transitioning Dow is key to self-environmental annihilation. Nerve 16. Resource-based environmental conditions are retrenching in the long run. It's possible to sustain growth while resources becoming scarce and costly. 6 area. Mass biodiversity appears to become polluting decline. In general, the quality of ecosystems indicates it would take 1.5 planets to grow in a sustainable way, but 2050 annual resource consumption and ecological damage would be 6 times greater. At the absurdly impossible implications of economic growth, technology is advanced capable of solving sustainable problems. The technical achievement of relevant areas, encouraging the only solution is to shift to some kind of simpler way lifestyles and systems to make it possible for deliberate fraction of our present with no economic growth. The problem can only be solved if rich countries are just doing something fair. And economic growth cycles result in rampant nanotechnology innovation and scale of production. Zakara 11. Advances in warfare result of changing unfolding economics and technology. Mankind's propensity towards conflict remains passionate. Conflict over faith and culture. The economy with the force that pulls them apart. The advances will be in nanotechnology. Advances creating new types of viruses. Stop nanotechnology development. Nano-sized toxic materials. Mechanizing war through miniaturization. And extinction worse than nukes and no deterrence. Vassar 6. Nanotech weapons can have theoretically enough to kill every human on Earth. Packed into a single suitcase with much harder spot on a radar. Nanotech weapons will be destabilizing. Nuclear weapons could be credited with the invention. However, nanotech weapons differ. Nuclear weapons can be tracked to nanotech weapons develop more rapidly unless nanotech is tightly controlled. The number of nanotech nations in the world will be much harder than the number of nuclear nations, increase the chance of regional conflict blowing up. Let's go into solvency. Enhancing SciComm's capabilities creates a spiral of escalation. People view this move as inherently offensive. Healy 16. Deterrence less reliable will essentially each other's right as an aggressor right for miscalculation, building cyber capabilities, center spiral of escalation, premier military offensive use, cyber command alongside top espionage agency, integrating the NSA cyber defense deterrence, more cyber espionage deterrent will make it even harder for US adversaries to rely on US military capabilities, purely defensive, relying on nuclear analogies to likely to be miscalculating. Okay, ready for cross. No problem.
Alright, let's start off on the topitality. You said like actions are distinct from rule changes.
Yes.
Is like, how is having Cybercom oversee something like a rule change?
It's like a bureaucratic change. So it's putting SciComm in charge of implementing some bureaucratic action. It's not having Cyber Command literally go out and do something. They're overseeing, they're not taking an action.
Are they already responsible for overseeing like electrical grids?
I'm pretty sure like the DHS are responsible for most cybersecurity related things.
Okay, but if I could show you that like the Cyber Command is already like working with the grids, would that still be a bureaucratic change?
It's like a question of your plan text. Like your plan text is worded in a not topical way.
Right. I understand that. I'm just asking like to respond to it. Is it sufficient to prove that like if they're already responsible, they
Probably
really wouldn't be able to
not,
prove that rule change,
because
right?
the wording of your plan text is just related to overseeing something. So like that's the same.
Okay, let's move on to the K.
Okay.
So basically you're saying that like, the militarism like construct of the cyborg soldier is like masculized and it's like bad, right?
Yeah. Do you want me to explain it more? Or?
Briefly, please.
Okay, so essentially Masters is making the argument that the cyborg soldier is the American man who feels emasculated in war. So when you give him this type of cyber technology, he becomes essentially invincible. He thinks that he can kill all those beneath him, those who are feminized, racialized, sexualized, etc. And like your app is propagating this by utilizing the military in every single city around the United States.
Does every single city have a power grid though?
I mean, like, you probably can't get much of an impact if you don't argue that, but, like, Masters is just
I'm
arguing,
just, like,
literally utilizing that military technology in itself is strengthening the cyborg soldier.
even if we're doing something that's like purely defensive.
I mean, you are literally implementing a Bayesian intrusion technology. The cyborg soldier will co-opt that to make him stronger. It's a form of resilient defense. When the cyborg soldier becomes resilient, he believes that he can kill all those beneath him.
Okay, so then what's the alternative?
The alternative is to re-engage with the body. And what Masters articulates is like a couple of things. So first, here's how we can view this in this round. In this round, we can reject the app. It is a bad idea if it's constructing the cyborg soldier as like stronger. We can re-engage with what our bodies should be and realize that the notions of securitization evident in the app are a product of securitization and not something we should endorse. And it talks about how specifically the cyborg soldier is infinitely leaky. So when we have a radical re-articulation of what qualifies as a body that matters, then we have a way to become divorced from the status quo in which the cyborg soldier is taking over.
Cool.
Okay.
Sorry, prep time. Alright, I'm good. Saving up money. Should be.
Okay, let me just pull it up. Oh, it's just a blank document.
Yeah, it's gonna be an error.
What's wrong with it? It's a blank.
Yeah.
I'll try saving it as a PDF. Just so.
Let me look.
It works for me.
It says the file is corrupted for me. Let me try to debug it. Yeah, I guess I'll try again to download it.
If you preview it, it might be able to use it.
Okay,
Preview it in the web browser.
okay, that makes sense. Let's just fix that. Okay, now I see.
Order's gonna be T, the K, and then on case in order.
Okay.
Sorry, my computer's like. Everyone good?
Mhm.
First off, on the T, we meet installing is a rule, even like under her interpretation, right? In order to install, you have to take a physical action. But far more importantly, Cybercom already coordinates the activities directed to the response of the DoD information. This is counter interpretation. U.S. DoD Public Affairs 2010. Cybercom plans, coordinates, integrates, and synchronizes and conducts activities to direct the operations and defense of specified Department of Defense information networks, and prepare to, when directed, conduct full spectrum military cyberspace operations in order to enable actions in all domains, even ensure U.S. allied freedom of action in cyberspace, and then same to our adversaries. Command is in charge of pulling together existing cyberspace resources, creating synergy so that currently exist. DoD information networks are power grids. They're already involved in like power grids. Our argument is predicated on this idea that like you have to make a bureaucratic rule change to allow them to do that. They're already involved in this process, which means fundamentally I'm not making a rule change. I'm instructing them to oversee the installation, which we have to actually do, and monitoring, which again is a continuous action that you must take in order to actually fulfill the resolution. For my standards of flexibility, they should not be strictly regulated 3 or 4 asks. There should be the possibility to have people take more arguments, positions, for instance, within rounds when everyone is arguing the same argument, step for breath. And definitely about small subject topic will offer greater knowledge and education around. And when it focuses on a lot of different arguments that we're stopping, allowing us to really understand and learn from the voters, fairness, and education. The topicality is complete after takeout, so you have to be 100% confident in voting off topicality. Fundamentally, I'm not making any bureaucratic rule changes under her own interpretation. I'm like fundamentally within the resolution. It's like I'm more than topical. Moving on to the K. So basically, she's like articulating the use of like military constructed cyborg soldier as like masculine violent subject. They reject her creating war. One inherently like a defense mechanism does not allow fundamentally for like war to take place. So like there's like really like no link here to like how my plan specifically makes this problem worse. You can still like reject it and like allow this plan to happen, right? So like we're not like enabling anyone to become more masculinized or more violent. If anything, we're preventing conflict with this. But like moving on specifically, one, the affects of the best explanation of violence rejected in the root cause argument. Voucher 3. The organization focuses on an area constructed by four-dimensional process, surveillance, potential, military power, capitalism, and industrialism. World history is the creation of the detrimental moment of history and social formation. It does not always exist. Four-dimensional multi-causal model of explanation of the institution of modernity. The institution of modernity contains four independent but interrelated dimensions: surveillance and control, military power, the monopoly of violence, industrialization, and capitalism. Capitalism is vital for the expansion of industrialism, since the process of accumulation and capital development technology are intertwined. Surveillance explains the necessity for national states to form the inherently transitional process of capitalism and industrialism. Capitalism and industrialism have rooted in not only national territory, but the national stat. Military forces and expansion of dimension of surveillance sees the benefit of national territory, which is market borders and surveillance of the population parallel to growth of military power. Country part there. Second, problems not black and white, but have complex issues. By declaring that it's like mass relations like always bad. They prevent like predators from understanding the nuances of an incredibly important and complex issue. They definition of organism. Keller et al. 2001. The initial advance in development of reflective theory occurs in the transition from holding fixed static ideas from an attitude of doubt over questioning and endangered by exposure to the alternate views in total discourse. Educational theorists have conducted learning that requires openness to divergent ideas in combination with the ability to synchronize disparate views and the purpose of resolution, clinging to the certainty of one's beliefs, synchronicity, and the ability to learn from new experiences. Got the card there. Inherently, my plan is reversing the trend of the status quo of a militarized act to a non-militarized act. My plan upholds the K better because what I'm actually doing is taking a step away from this militarized actions and instead incorporating a more defensive, nuanced nature that we can't see when you actually vote for the case. Third, individual change is not enough. First, vote as institutions to change government policy. Individual change is insufficient. Climate change communication average group 10. This short advisory paper marshals evidence about how best to motivate the ambitious and systematic behavior changes that are necessary, including crucial greater public engagement with the policy process. Political leaders themselves have drawn to attention to imperative or vocal public pressure to create the political space for them to interact more ambitiously with policy interventions. Individuals making small private street behavioral changes do not themselves represent a proportional response. Don't be struck by the myth that very little that helps. If everyone does a little, will only achieve a little. Cut the card there. Lastly, suicide debate creates conviction, which emerges from discussion and not prior to where debate exists to establish the refined positions and identities may be subsequently chosen. Galloway 7. Those who worry about the competitive academic debate will cause debaters to lose their conviction. Confuse the cart with a horse. Convention is not prior to discussion that flows from it. Sound conviction depends upon the thought of understanding from the conventional problems under consideration. Debate encourages rigorous training and scrutiny of arguments before debaters declare themselves an advocate for a given cause. Debate creates an ethical obligation to integrate ideas from each positions so they themselves may freely be consensual. Moving on to the alternative, really quickly, just to get some underview here. The alternative is simply not going to be solvent, and if anything, the way to achieve the alternative better is through my plan, right? Because like status quo, all these things bad things are going to happen. That's really bad. So instead, we should create policy that directly tries to reduce this to the most extent we can. And my plan does that by having cyber command instead of focusing on offensive cyber and military weapons, instead focus on grid security. That's inherently beneficial. That's inherently taking a step back, and that's inherently reducing the violence that my opponent is trying to advocate for. So I'm actually going to alternative better for through the plan. That's really good. Moving on to case first for emergency infrastructure. She reads these cards that link to the K that potential critical infrastructure is a product of discriminatory securitization. Usually scenarios create a boundary that democratizes the exclude interior realities. This there really doesn't link all that well to what I'm articulating, right? I show vulnerabilities in my heresy with page 18, and throughout my both advantages, I show that there's an inherent vulnerability. That's really problematic. So even if these issues don't exist, prefer the real world impacts that are being triggered status quo. Moving down to the economy advantage. We're seeing that you're still going to be preferring poverty over war, because I show you with my killing in 2000, that's really problematic. Secondly though, this linked into militarization, that's really not happening. This caller is 18. That the scholarly analysis of cyber operations and crisis ability suggests that these kind of cyber for cyber operations can occur below the threshold of conflict without escalating conventional military use of force. There's no link to militarized violence. And then lastly, the Gary 13 evidence shows that we're losing 500,000 jobs a year from hacking. That's really problematic. It's a real number to look for.
Okay, I'm gonna take my 4 minutes of prep starting now, please. load the doc right now. Okay, it's in the same doc, but it's just like under a 1AR tab. So it's like down below the NC. Unless it didn't say it, because sometimes my laptop does do that. So everyone got it? Okay, so the order is going to be the solvency flow, the econ advantage, the K flow, and then the other advantage.
Can you do that one more time?
Yeah, no problem. Solvency flow, econ flow, K flow, other advantage. Okay. Everyone ready? Starting off on solvency, you can extend the Healy evidence. It goes cold conceded. The app increases the probability of cyber attacks for two reasons. First, due to the connection with the military. When Cyber Command acts in cyberspace, other nations are unpersuaded by the argument that Cyber Command's actions are defensive, and they see increased DoD action as inherently aggressive. This perception ensures escalation emerges from the expansion of Cyber Command's role in cyberspace. Second, because Cybercom is perceived as working closely with the NSA to engage in espionage, which other countries use in escalatory actions they retaliate. This turns and outweighs case. The app leads to escalation in cyberspace, meaning the app not only has no solvency, but reproduces the harms of its impacts by taking dangerous military actions. They do not answer this card. They're probably going to try to cross-apply the argument that they are merely defense, but Healy is making the articulation that other countries conflate offense and defense when it's done by the military organization Cyber Command. It's a question of perception from other countries, not a question of actual implementation of the app. That's enough for you to vote for me right there, because I have turned both of the advantages with the app by proving that there will be an increase in cyber attacks when you vote for the affirmative case. But even if that's not enough, let's go into the econ advantage. They don't answer the DDoV terms, so you can pretty clearly vote on them. You can extend the trainer evidence. The economic collapse is inevitable now, but it is key time to happen to solve for global warming. Trainer argues that due to the massive boom in population over the past few years, economic collapse has become an inevitability. This is because wealthier nations are living on about 20 times more resources than any other nation. Due to this, it will become impossible for developed nations to continue to grow into the future as other competitive nations start to take the limited resources, pushing developed nations towards economic collapse. However, Trainer argues that collapsing the economy now is better than waiting for it inevitably. This is because he contends that collapsing the economy and stopping our path to economic growth is essential to stopping the trend of warming, because technological growth and developments will never be able to catch up to the onset of scarcity and pollution warming is causing. This outweighs their scenario in a few ways. First, on probability, Trainer argues that warming has a 100% chance of leading to extinction unless wealthier nations massively reduce their resource consumption. That means it's try or die for warming. Second, on magnitude, warming is the highest magnitude impact. It will lead to conflicts over resource scarcity, collapse biodiversity, destroy food industries, and create massive flooding, turning poverty, re-entrenching people in developing countries into poverty, which re-exemplifies his impacts. And third, on time frame, Trainer argues that we must make a shift now in order to prevent warming onset to pass to the point of no return, meaning accepting no arguments about waiting to solve warming later. We need to act now. Second shell, also cold conceded, another extinction impact for me. You can extend the nanotech shell. Economic de-development is essential because it prevents the development of new technology such as nanotechnology, which will become more dangerous and ensure extinction as non-state actors gather technology, commit genocides, mass killings, and cause extinction of the human race. Extend the Zakara 11 evidence. It argues that war and violence is inevitable because there will always be ideological disagreements, and as long as the military exists, problematic technology will be utilized. Because of this inevitability, Zakara argues we need to stop our path to economic growth now to prevent extinction. This is because the development of technologies across history concludes that as economies grow, technologies expand and becoming cheaper and more dangerous, leading to accessibility for non-state actors of dangerous nanotechnology. You can extend the Baxter and Six evidence. He argues the development of nanotechnology through economic growth ensures extinction. This would occur in a few ways. First, it expands the capacity of terrorists to kill massive amounts of people. Nanotech has the capacity to replicate and be extremely small, meaning a single terrorist attack could launch enough devices to kill every human on Earth. Second, for interstate conflict, nanotech destroys effective deterrence. First, because nukes are more easily tracked. Second, because of preemptive prevention. Yeah, so this independently produces an arms race, but this is going to outweigh all of their case arguments. First, they concede in cross-ex that economic growth only benefits those people living on the top. That means voting for an affirmative case is only voting to help the elites. They concede this in cross-ex, each their own argument. Second, because war turns poverty. When you exemplify the causes of war, that's pushing more people into poverty as they lose their lives from violence. They lose their loved ones, they lose their homes. And third, because global warming turns poverty, people in developing countries are helped first. Okay, I'm going to access the largest impact and outweigh the hospital advantage as well. First, on scope, a lot more people die from extinction than like people in hospitals. Second, it's a prerequisite. Global warming and the loss of life is what pushes people to have to go to hospitals in the first place. That means I'm accessing a massive turn here. And third, war is going to turn. When there's more war, there's more need for hospitals. I outweigh both advantages with just the DDEV turns alone. You can vote for me there. Let's go on to the K. I understand that I do not have a lot of time to go for it, but I'm still going to answer back his claims. So his primary argument that he makes is that he doesn't link to the K, so he's attempting to link turn the K. Even if you don't vote on the K, I'm going to prove why that link turn is not a viable option to win the debate. Here's how the link to the K works. The master's evidence articulates that individuals in the military want to build a resilient subject. That means that they are resilient from outside defenses so that they can become biologically superior to all those around them. Specifically, in the context of this act, that means implementing Bayesian intrusion grids makes the resilient masculinized subject more resilient to cyber attacks, so he has more leeway to go out and kill those people that are lesser than him. That is the link to the K. The cyborg soldier is the software engineer that kills. He's been outfitted with technologies that circumvent biological limitation, making him the perfect masculinized soldier. The 1AC perpetuates the cyborg soldier by playing on a desire to free the soldier from his vulnerabilities. Their app is the biggest link. They literally impose military control over civilian grids and automate the detection and response to cyber attacks. This is imposing the cyborg soldier in every city around the world to the point where he can no longer be defeated. I'll answer all their responses. Their first response is the military is good. Like, no, it's not. The master's evidence makes the articulation that the advancement in military technology is what allows the cyborg soldier to regard those as inferior around him. Then they make this argument about it being black and white. That's like probably linked to the K because you're positing black and white as good and bad things. Additionally, like all of their other responses are just reasons that like Ks are good and that the alt can't solve, but I'm still winning a root cause claim to war.
I'm gonna leave it in a prep left. Take a minute.
I'd like to have access to ballots at all now. Like I can. So is that worse than what it was before?
Yeah.
Last time I really did it, but now I can't. I'll tell you and I, you know what you think about it. And if you have, if you don't, what? Chipotle, how do you do? Two pounds of pepper. Chipotle sounds like JK, you ready?
Yeah. Order is going to be solvency, followed by the like advantage 1, advantage 2, like shells, and then the defense. Everyone good? Starting off on solvency, my opponent makes the claim that I don't respond to Healy evidence, but like I don't need to because Kohler's does a better job than I ever could. The Kohler's 18 evidence says that most of these cyber operations occur under the threshold of where violence is actually going to be taking place. The Healy evidence doesn't become relevant at this point because again, any action the cyber command can take historically has been under the threshold where conflict is going to exist. The Healy evidence doesn't matter at this point because again, no matter what cyber command does, Kohler's 18 articulates that like all these like actions that cyber command has taken as a military combatant unit have occurred under the threshold of where violence is going to be occurring. That's really important because she's not going to be gaining access to these big picture structural violence, big picture like war impacts. Moving on to the like the two shells that she reads. First the global warming shell and then like nanotech shell. Just group these for a second and like look like what she's saying. She's like articulating that economic collapse is inevitable. If that's true, then the impact that she's talking about are going to occur whether you vote AF or NAG. At this point, you should be preferring a team that actually does some sort of change that allows at least short-term comfort. Because again, these impacts, according to her in her last speech, are going to be inevitable no matter if you vote for the AF or vote for the NAG. Look to the Gilligan or the Jerry 13 card, where it's about cyber espionage leads to roughly 500,000 job losses per year. Again, in terms of magnitude, that doesn't compare to extinction, but if extinction is going to be happening anyway, then we should be looking to the team that's actually solving some sort of short-term crisis. In the long term, both impacts are inevitable. That's really important because again, there's going to be any like large picture impacts stemming from either one of these two global warming shells or the nanotech shells. But going back down to the Senate exercise more specifically, like what I'm taking is like taking a step back and trying to actually focus on a more defensive aspect, right? Like the technology that we're actually going to be implementing and advocating for isn't going to facilitate the harms that she wants you to believe. Look what the Bayesian plan does. Look at my solvency evidence. It is inherently a non-militaristic approach to ensure grid security. That's really impactful and that's going to be really important. Lastly, moving on to the feminist K. She's like not really going for it at this point, but it's still like is entitled to like responses to it. Like she says that like we're like biologically superior, and like that like you like enable the cyborg soldier to be like superior and like allow them to think that like they can just like kill everyone. Like no, my plan doesn't like do that. She's like inherently trying to say that defending power grids enables people to kill one another. Fundamentally, that doesn't make sense. Well, far more importantly, my plan is taking a step away from that. If we have to make these cyborg soldiers, which are militarized in nature, step away and focus on defensive measures, we're not enabling them to conduct the violence that they would status quo. That's really important. But again, remember, climate change communication adversary group intent, that individual change, no matter what, isn't going to be enough, and there's no root cause to the problem anyway. By isolating this issue, that thing like cyber command and like enabling them for a militaristic approach is the root cause to the issue, completely takes away all the nuance to a very serious, very impactful issue that exists status quo. That's really bad because that means that we're taking away from the educational by policy debate round when inherently we can create policy that reverses the trends in the status quo. My plan is the best way to access this. My plan is the best way to reduce this violence. Because again, having a military organization have a purely defensive role, only good things come from that. But also look to the solvency. She doesn't attack the inherent warrant that I prevent conflict by like reducing the cyber attack effectiveness. That means that I'm long term also stopping more cyber attacks anyway. At that point, it's a clear vote for the app.